bitches? Welcome back to another episode of Women Gone Wild podcast, a space where rebellious, authentic, expressive, free-spirited women who don't fit into a box are celebrated and encouraged to keep popping her shit. I'm your host, Zae, and whether this is your first time here or your seventh time here, welcome. I'm glad you fuck with me. I fuck with you too. It's March. It's Women's History Month. And as someone who has dedicated an entire podcast to celebrating women, this is my jam. So we're going to be going the fuck in. We're going to be talking about women's various contributions to society throughout history. We're going to be talking about the ways that women have impacted the world and influenced and just pioneered a bunch of really cool shit. So yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. So thank you for being here because it's up all month. And I'd like to start off by saying shout out to single mothers. As someone who doesn't have kids, I admire single mothers. The decision to stay and devote yourself to parenthood, even though you don't have the fairy tale dream life with, two parents in the home, marriage, all of that. To devote yourself to parenthood takes a lot of courage and bravery and strength, and that is really admirable and inspiring. My mother was single for like 14 years of my life, and she was not checking for no man. She wasn't really going out like that. And in fact, I really watched her like pretty much sacrifice her entire life in order to give me and my brother the best childhood that she could possibly give on her own. And she deserves a lot of credit for that. I wouldn't be who I was if it wasn't for her. I wouldn't know what love is. I wouldn't be in touch with my feminine side if it wasn't for my mother. So shout out to y'all, okay? And I feel like people really be giving single moms a hard time, specifically single black moms, because people are just fucking mad at their fathers. And because niggas don't know their fathers, it's hard to place that anger where it belongs. So it's misdirected. And yeah, single moms just pretty much get all of the smoke. And it's not fair. It's not fair. And people really hate to see, and that's why people really hate to see single moms thriving. Everyone just assumes that single black moms specifically are poor and broke and struggling, and that's just not the case. A lot of women who are single moms, a lot of black women who are single moms are really on their shit actually, and they inspire the fuck out of me, because there's a lot of adults who can't even take care of themselves. So to see a woman taking care of 2, 3, 4 kids by herself and not doing bad at all, and actually doing a really good fucking job, is inspiring. And I'm celebrating those women all month long. I hate to see people, telling single moms that, oh, no one's ever gonna want you, and you lose your value after you have kids, and the chances of you remarrying or finding a Russell is slim to none. And it's like, you would love for that to be true. You absolutely would, right? But I see single mothers getting wifed up left and right. Okay, there are men who want to step up and be a husband to women who have children, because guess what? Women don't lose their value after they have children. Our value is infinite. And to even suggest that our value somehow diminishes every time we give life is blasphemous. That's like saying every time God produces or creates something, God loses value. You know how disrespectful that is? You niggas need to start watching your fucking mouths, honestly, when you talk about single moms. Because when you see them get wiped up, you be confused and mad. And then you start invalidating the man who comes into the picture, calling him a simp and making up all kinds of other shit to move away from the goalposts. Because what you originally had planned for her, a life of loneliness and singlehood, it didn't work out the way you thought it was going to go. And now you're confused and mad and talking shit about men like Russell, right? It just gets me that people are continuously blaming black mothers for the downfall of the black community. Like it's our fault for having kids out of wedlock and not having a father in the home. But what about these men who don't possess the qualities that make him a great husband, much less proposing? You know, they're nutting in women, abandoning the kids, and then blaming the mothers for being single mothers. Make it make sense. Now, if you didn't do it, your homeboy did. So where's the smoke for these niggas? For real. I feel like fatherlessness is the number one generational curse. Now, granted, white supremacy systematically removed fathers from the home through slavery, mass incarceration, and wage inequality. But what we're not going to do is blame everything on the black single mother. Okay? Now, there are things that need to take place in order for, the quote unquote black community to thrive as far as our family structure. But it's not going to happen as long as we keep blaming black women for where we at. It's just not going to work. There needs to be a certain level of respect and honor in place. And everybody's situation is different. So this is not like to say that, everyone who's in a co-parenting situation is messy and, causing chaos and dysfunction. I'm not saying that. But if we are going to be talking about, who's to blame and who's not to blame, that needs to stop, period. We're done placing blame. If we want to blame somebody, we can blame white supremacy, but we cannot rely on white supremacy to fix it. We have to come together somehow. So that anti-single mom rhetoric, I'm not with it. I'm really, really, really quick to advocate for a group of people that I don't actually belong to. I've always been that way. I've always been very empathetic and just, here for justice, divine justice and righteousness. I can't stand seeing people getting picked on. I can't stand seeing people being marginalized or bullied or anything like that. So I'm always stand up. And I don't care if people call me a crash out. Like if I cuss a motherfucker out and they call me a crash out, I really don't give a shit about none of that. Because, okay, and what? Not only am I not really a crash out. Like y'all be overused. I feel like we overuse a lot of terms and water them down to the point where they lose their meaning. Like, crashing out is doing something you can't really come back from, you know what I'm saying, out of anger or rage, or hysteria, such as, holding someone at gunpoint, going on a police chase, committing murder, shit like that. But me cussing your ass out is not me crashing out. And even if it was, so what? I don't care about being viewed as a crash out because my rage is quite literally my superpower at times. Okay, my rage gets me through times where people have me fucked up. And I'm always speak my mind. I don't care how it looks. That's the problem. Too many people are overly concerned with how they're being perceived, especially in moments where emotions are high. Let that shit out. Let it out. You know that most autoimmune diseases are caused from suppressing emotions and just being stressed. Keep it real. And a lot of people can't even keep it real to save their lives. I'm not about to develop some sort of disease just because niggas made me mad and I don't want to look like a crash out, so I didn't say nothing. Like, no, that's not me. Not over here. Sorry. Not sorry. So I just had to let that be known. There's nothing wrong with crashing out. More women should crash the fuck out. There's no virtue in pretending to be unbothered. All that does is have you self-imploding and suffering. You're holding all of that in your nervous system. It's getting lodged into your body, creating all types of dis-ease and disarray. You don't have to put up with that. So, I just wanted to let that be known. And as a tribute to Women's History Month, I want to talk about someone who inspires me as a writer, as a public speaker, because she herself was an advocate as well. I want to talk about the late Phyllis Wheatley. She was an American poet. She was actually the first African American poet to ever publish a book of poetry. And that poetry book was called Poems on Various Subjects, Religious and Moral. It was published in 1973, and it was through her poetry that she audaciously asserted her authority. She displayed a strong conviction for the freedom of enslaved people, and she advocated on their behalf. So this woman was impeccable, and I'm really inspired by her because she was actually a slave. She was born in Gambia, but she was brought to Boston when she was 8 years old and enslaved by a family who introduced her to classic literary works and taught her how to read and write. Now, you can teach anybody how to read and write, but to be able to take those skills and become a renowned poet is amazing. She was a poet by the time she was 14 years old, and she did pass away at the age of 31 after giving birth to her daughter and contracting pneumonia. And the world almost forgot about her, but thankfully, in the last 100 years, historians have revived her name and started to recognize her as a foundational American poet. Today, she is highly revered for her significant contributions to the literary world, as she should be. So if you're ever in Boston, you should visit the Boston Women's Memorial on Commonwealth Avenue to pay your respects, because sis definitely deserves her flowers. It's quite inspiring, actually. You know, it takes a lot of tact and bravery and intelligence to be an activist out loud in those times. I always say, if I was a slave back in the day, I would have been messy as fuck. It wouldn't have been tactful at all. I would have tried to slit my slave master's throat in his sleep, or I would have led a revolt, or I would have tried to do some black magic to curse their entire bloodline for all of eternity, or some shit like that. But you know, you can't really talk about shit like that. You have to keep that under wraps. So to oppose, you know, something out loud and intelligently, I guess, intellectually, is really commendable. So yeah, shout out to her. I'm really inspired by people who know how to communicate with tact, because sometimes I do be going off the rails a little bit, you know, and I don't always get my point across. You know, you're not really an efficient communicator if what you're saying isn't being received the way you intended for it to be. Like, you know, you can pop your shit and talk your shit all you want to, but if who you're talking to isn't receiving it, then you're just talking. You're not communicating. So I'm just striving to be a little bit better at that every day, which is why I have this podcast. It is helping me become better with my words, and I appreciate you guys for listening. Before I go, I'd like to share a little poem that I wrote in honor of Women's History Month and in dedication to this podcast. It's titled Women Gone Wild. This is for the woman made of clay and rib, made in God's image to see her reflection, her heart full of gold and a mind full of wisdom, an illuminating essence beyond bones and flesh, and only a fool would take advantage of her grace, 'cause let's not forget the magnitude of her age. She was born with the memories of her maternal ancestors, and they have a lot to say. A masterful polyphony of narratives the matriarchs sing from back then and years from now. Her intuition grows louder than thunder, as the ones who pass on pass their gifts down. A self-actualized goddess, aware of her power, strengthening by the hour. She's had to walk through fire and sometimes with an infant on her hip. She rises from her ashes like a phoenix. Yet the world audaciously tries to make her question who she is. How dare she fall in love with her life? Everything she does is anointed and blessed, but she should be falling in line. Why can't she relinquish her calling and just be less? Visible to everyone but seen by few, a force to be reckoned with. Don't tell a wild woman what to do. She visualizes her world from a bird's eye view. She shapeshifts, collects her gifts, and blasts off in her spaceship. Now they mad 'cause they can't contain her, telling lies at the tail of a long line of niggas who tried to play her. Nothing can shake her. With thick skin and a soft heart, you can't break her or make her hard. If you want access, you better play your part. Don't touch. Simply take this moment to enjoy the art. Poem. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I do have that poem on my Instagram as well. You can catch me at zajavuu. Go ahead and follow me. And if you're on YouTube watching this, make sure you like and subscribe and leave a comment if you're feeling fly. Let me stop. All right, I'm going to get out of here now. I do appreciate y'all again for tuning in. Make sure you stick around for what's to come for the rest of the month, because we celebrating women all month long and forever. Okay? I love you. I want you to have a wonderful rest of your week. Be well. Peace.